What's up, everybody?
Hey, we know you guys.
Hey, we know you guys, and you guys know us, maybe. We
Are
the
music
Maniacs
Sight
After
Dark.
I'm
Dan
Berg.
and
I'm
Sifa
Graffiti.
Hey.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back. We are very excited.
We are.
About this topic, about this episode that we're about to do. This is literally when we started this podcast. This is one of the first that we wanted to do, but we wanted to save it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So with a lot of pleasure, without any further ado, I hereby declare that this next podcast shall be on the one, the only, the legendary, the unique, the Doors. And to mark the occasion, we have some very special guests with us in the studio today.
We do.
So, everybody from Los Angeles, California, please welcome the Doors.
John, Robby, Jim, and Ray.
All right, first, so if you're watching the video, you already know what the hell we're talking about.
Yeah.
When we said that the Doors are here. And if you're listening on audio, you might be a little confused. So allow us to explain. Our good friend and patron, David Cerami, blessed us with this Doors Funko set.
Yep.
Of Waiting for the Sun album and every single member of the Doors.
Yes.
And we loved it so much that we had to literally get shelves into the studio just to display it correctly.
Absolutely.
And in honor of this awesome piece of fun wall art that we have.
Yeah.
We decided to finally do this Doors podcast.
Yay.
So I'm super excited. I've mentioned this before, and I'll mention it during the podcast. The Doors are the first band I was ever a fan of.
Yeah, and the first song I learned to play on guitar was a Doors song.
Aha.
Yeah, I taught myself.
Aha. That's the only way to do it.
Yeah.
All right, so we are going to get into it. We're going to talk about the motherfucking Doors.
Yay.
All right, so where do we start? Do we start in LA or do we start with, like, Jim?
I want to start with Ray for some reason. I just would love to start with Ray Manzarek, the keyboardist extraordinaire and one of the best rock and roll keyboardists, one of the best keyboardists you ever heard. Like, yeah. Honest to goodness. But this guy, Ray, was going to school for law. And then somehow he wasn't paying attention that much. But he had already been trained in classical piano. And, you know, he decided to take up school as a hobby because he's such a brainiac. All right. So he goes to school for law. And then he kind of gets tripped up. He doesn't want to do it that much. And then so he decides to change his major to like motion picture and TV drama. But then somewhere in the mix of that, he's like, hey, you know what will be cool? Let me go to the Army. You know, so he decides to go to the Army. And he wants to get a job in the Army as a videographer in the Army. And they were like, no, we're going to make you a systems analyst. So he gets...
You're going to analyze systems.
You know what I'm saying? So this guy, this brainiac, gets that job. And then after he's done with his tour in his army, he comes home and he's like, you know what? I'm going to try school again. So he hops into school and At
UCLA.
At UC, at UCLA.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he meets somebody there by the name of Jim Morrison.
Right.
And we'll give a little background on him. So he is a crazily legendary figure in rock music.
Yes.
I mean, everything about him is, he was born a rock legend.
That's right. They were like, when's this Jim going to get in a band?
Yeah. No, it's actually really funny because he did not ever sing or write songs before he got involved with the Doors.
Not one bit.
He was, he was a military brat, as they call it. His dad was an admiral.
Yes.
He was real high up.
Exactly. Big time. All right.
He was actually I believe he was like a commander during the Gulf of Tonkin. Is that what it was? Incident that like led to the Vietnam War being more like escalated.
Yes.
In, we know with the American troops, but that's a whole thing.
Well, we know why people want to disassociate while their rock career is going really, really high. Hey, man, we don't blame you, Jim.
So Jim didn't really talk about that much. But, so Jim was born in Melbourne, Florida.
Yeah.
Which is crazy because I used to go there all the time with my family. And Melbourne, Florida, when I was there in like the early 2000s, was a very sleepy beach town.
Yeah.
I can only imagine what the fuck it was like in 1943.
Yeah, less developed and stuff like that.
There was probably like one hospital, one hotel, one restaurant. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, there's still not a lot there to this day.
Yeah.
It's pretty underdeveloped for Florida. You know what I mean? But anyway, so Jim was born there. They bounced around. He grew up, he spent some time in Clearwater, Florida, which is where I was born and raised. So shout out to Jim. Mm-hmm. He went to community college there, where I also went for a class. And then he ended up going to school at Florida State University, where I also went to school.
Shout out.
So I basically was just unintentionally following Jim all over the state of Florida.
Wait, are you Jim Morrison?
See, this is the thing. Like, I didn't really want to tell people this.
Yeah.
But I actually am. I am Jim Morrison. I'm the reincarnation of Jim Morrison, if you guys didn't know.
I knew it.
Yeah. But it's actually funny. He was in a recruitment film for Florida State University that we were actually watching right before.
Yes.
And he also got arrested for trying to incite a riot at a football game.
That's right.
Which is so funny because football is like the biggest thing in the city of Tallahassee, Florida. And of course, him being the rebel that he is, he wanted to fuck with it.
Of course, he had to. Yeah. And like I always kind of say, it's something about these army brats. I think they just know. There's like partly nepotism and it is partly like, listen, I can do whatever the fuck I want.
Because my dad's in the military. Fuck you. Yeah. But Jim was always a voracious reader.
Yeah.
He basically was reading everything he could fucking get his hands on.
Yeah. His sister said he would read a word and then he would write a whole story around that word, which is just, I mean, so great. Like, yeah. It's no surprise that his mind would mash up with a Ray Manzarek mind. You know?
Right.
Just two analysts.
Highly intelligent brains.
Yeah. Dissecting minds.
One was a bit more impulsive than the other.
Yeah.
Impulsive. I said impulsive. That's the name of a podcast.
Oh, man.
With fucking Logan Paul. Free promo. He was a little more impulsive. But anyway.
Yeah.
It was funny. I saw an interview with his dad. He was like, most kids, when they graduate high school, they want like a car.
Yeah.
They don't ask for the complete works of Friedrich Nietzsche.
No, they don't.
Which is what Jim asked for, apparently.
Oh my gosh. And it's like, to me, if you read Nietzsche, like, you definitely need some like mushrooms or some peyote after, because you are so hardcore sectioned into where society's gonna go. You feel like you know everything and you're just like, I need a break from being this smart now. Well,
that's the thing. Jim, he just read so much that he really started to see what society kind of was and kind of rebel against it. And it's like, we'll get into it more. It's interesting, like the timing of it, because this was during like when the Doors happened, it was during like the hippie era and shit.
Yeah.
And everybody was all kind of like peace and love and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And Jim was just kind of like,
fuck that.
Everything's fucked.
Exactly.
I'm here to tell you why everything's fucked.
You're all a bunch of fucking
slaves. But we'll get into that. We don't want to get ahead of ourselves.
No. We want to get over ourselves and under ourselves, but never ahead.
Right. Never ahead.
Okay.
So Jim ended up, after Florida State, he transferred to UCLA, where he was in the film program.
Yes.
Where he met a fellow named Ray.
Yep.
And in the film program, they were friends. They weren't like best friends.
Right.
But they got along.
Yeah, because when the school year ended, they were just like, when they graduated, actually, they were just like, all right, man, see, it was great in school. They never really thought, it wasn't a friendship like that where they needed to stay in touch.
Right.
They just went their separate ways. And then 40 days later.
Well, it's funny because Ray was like, yeah, I'm going to keep, hanging around in California. What are you going to do? He was like, I'm going to move to New York City. Jim said that. And it's funny because nobody really knows what happened when he went to New York, but it seems like he just got spit up and chewed the fuck out, right?
Yeah.
Like, he was just like, I don't want to be here.
No.
This is too fucking much.
It's too much. You don't want summer in the city, really, Jim. You should have came around the fall or the spring. You don't want to come in the height of the summer. You're already out at the pretty beach. Stay there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go enjoy the summer out in LA.
Yeah.
But I'm glad that he didn't.
Yeah.
Because what happened was he went back to LA, and just by chance, he happened to run into Ray at the beach.
Yeah.
Venice Beach, I believe.
Yes.
And it's funny because Jim was always a poet, but like we said at the beginning, he was never a musician.
No.
He never sang. He never wrote songs.
Right.
But he was always a writer.
Yeah.
And when he saw Ray again, he basically told Ray, like, hey, like, I've basically been hearing concerts in my head. And I've been taking notes on these concerts in my head. And I've been writing this stuff down.
Yeah.
And Ray's like, that's pretty cool, man. Like, why don't you sing me something?
Yeah.
So he sings Moonlight Drive.
Yeah, a little bit of Moonlight Drive. He sings that. And I'm sure, I mean, just by knowing how the song sounds, I must have been
Let's go to the moon. Oh. And Ray apparently instantly was just like, oh.
Yeah.
He was like, I like this. It's like, it's smart, but it's kind of like spooky. It's kind of like haunting in a way.
Yeah.
And go for it.
Classical pianists would probably love that.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Ray hears that and he was just like, I think I could make some good music to go with it. I could write some interesting music to go with this.
Right.
So that was really the start of it.
Yeah.
Of the Doors. Ray was already playing in a band with his brothers.
Yes, both brothers. One named Jim.
Yes. But they was kind of like they did it on the weekends. Like they weren't really like, oh yeah, we gotta do music.
Yeah.
You know
it's more like practicing or just boning up on your skills more than anything.
Right. So they got together with Jim and they started playing, and it was really like it was 5 people at one point. It was like they had the 3 Manzareks, they had Jim, and they also had a bass player.
Yeah.
And I think they even got signed to Columbia. But Columbia never did anything, and they dropped them. And then when they started taking it more seriously, I guess Ray's brothers were like, yeah, like after they got dropped, they're like, I'm just going to go back to my day job. Like, I don't really love this shit like that.
Yeah. They were like, if anything, if you make it, Ray, we all make it. You know what I'm saying? Just hand up some cash.
Exactly. Hey, just don't forget where you came from, okay?
Exactly. Ray's going to make it. I'm going to take a break.
Yeah. So that version of the band kind of ended, and then I think Ray met John somewhere at like a party, right?
It was a transcendental meditation session for the Maharishi.
Yeah. Which is like the most 60s thing I've ever heard.
Me too. Hey guys, you want to go meditate down the block? The Maharishi's going to be here.
You want to go try some TM?
Fuck yeah, man.
Okay.
All right, let's go.
Yeah, so Ray met up with John there, and he heard that he was a drummer. He was like, hey, man, you want to start a band? or sorry, like, I already got something going on. You want to join a band?
Yeah.
And John's kind of like, I don't know, man. I'm a professional. Like, I'll think about it.
Exactly. And meanwhile, John is like a teenager. And Ray is like, just graduated college, which, when you get older is not a big difference. But like at that point in your life, you're like, I'm way older than this kid.
Right.
Like, it's hilarious.
So John eventually decides to see what's up with Ray's band, and he starts getting together with them and Jim, who was super shy at the time.
Yeah.
Like, he was like saying that when John first came in, John was saying like he wasn't even like looking at us. Like, he was like standing in the corner with this like his creepy words and shit. Like he wasn't, he hadn't really fully bloomed into the performer that he would become. Right.
And John and Robby Krieger had already been playing together too, because they were friends. They were about the same age, and they were friends. And I'm not sure if Robby was at that meditation place either.
I think John and Robby both went to the transcendental meditation place, and then once the 3 of them were in, John was like, hey, I got a guitar player that would probably work out really well for what we're doing.
Yeah.
So then Robby came in, and immediately everyone was like, yeah, this is perfect.
Yeah, gotta be. Because speaking of spooky and dark, I mean, I find that Robby's chords and, choices are very like spooky bordello. You feel you're on the border of Texas and Mexico. You don't know where you are.
Right. Well, I think it's interesting to say how the style of all of these musicians comes together so well.
Right?
Because Robby plays guitar in a way very different from a lot of other people. It's very like, well, I guess this kind of makes sense because you're talking about the transcendental meditation. It's very Indian influenced, but also it's like flamenco.
Yes.
But also it's rock. And he just kind of hits note. And there's also a decent amount of dissonance in it. Yeah. The way that he plays. Like, he doesn't always play the prettiest notes.
Right.
Which
I'm going to splash some melancholy in there.
Yeah. But that really adds a lot of depth to the sound. And then Ray, obviously he's classically trained, like we were saying, but he had a way of making these like very like gothic sounding kind of riffs on the organ.
Baroque, if you will.
And you said something, we've talked about this, because we talk about the Doors all the time, but you said something that I never really thought about. How basically, in your mind, the Doors are the start of like gothic rock.
Yeah.
I never thought about that until you said that.
I really feel like they are. Everything's just so, even though they, for some reason, personality-wise, seemed that they had more color to their personality, but their music is just so gothic.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they're not even from areas where you would associate with like anything gothic, a gothic scenery, right? We're talking about Florida, California, some parts of Virginia too for Jim as well. Like, you know, you don't see that as like, you know, buildings and dark clouds and stuff.
Right.
But they'll sing about it though.
It's not like they're from New York, okay?
Exactly.
They're not from here.
That's probably what happened when Jim went there. It was probably got
like,
all
it's too much.
His mood. He was like, I'll take the mood, but I'm getting the fuck out of here.
I'm gonna take the general feeling of like the world's ending, and I'm gonna bring that back to LA with me, and we're gonna make some hits.
That's right.
But and then also John, his drumming style is really underrated, I feel.
Me too.
Because he combines so many different. He's got. I mean, like Break On Through, it starts with like a bossa nova beat.
Yeah.
And then he has jazz influence, but then he also has some rock influence. Like it's very rare that he'll just go. Like he's not doing a lot of straightforward beats like that. He's always got some embellishments and something things to throw in.
Yeah, yeah. And we're kind of like riding the wave here because one of his favorites, one of his idols is a drummer that loved John Coltrane. You know, and then another one of his favorites is Art Blakey, and we covered them on our drumming video.
On the Greatest Drummers of All Time podcast that we did a few weeks ago. I don't know, it was a while ago actually.
Yeah, it was a while ago.
But check that out. So they all get together in LA and they end up calling themselves the Doors. And it's funny because I remember when I first discovered the Doors, thinking that was kind of a lame name.
Really?
I remember thinking, like, for what this music is, this is a fucking lame name. And then I did more research into it, and I found out what the Doors actually meant.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Because this is where it comes from everyone that doesn't know. It comes from Aldous Huxley, who said in some book, I don't remember what book.
The Doors of Perception.
Was it really?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm an idiot. He said in The Doors of Perception that once the doors of perception are cleansed, then people can see the world how it truly is. Yeah. Infinite. And that is what they named the band after. Yeah. And when I found that out, I was like, this makes sense.
Yeah. I always thought they were the cooler of the you know, besides the Beatles and the Rolling Stones, because there were so many other bands, the Turtles, the this, the Monkees, the that. And I'm just like, Birds. These people are crazy. The Birds, you know, it was just so much the Beach Boys. So I don't know. I thought of it as kind of cool, but I did see it as part of the era. And I was just like, what were all these people thinking? Like...
Yeah, that's true. I don't know. I just remember thinking it was like, what, like a door? Like, there's doors everywhere. Like, I walked into a door to come here. You know what I mean? Like, why is that cool? But
because death is a door and time is a window. Just kidding. That's from Ghostbusters. I'm not smart. Like,
it's funny. We realized this literally today, that we're on the same wave as the Doors, because our logo, which is on Sifa's shirt and will also be on the screen here, it's, you know, it's a figure walking into a door with all this light coming out of it. And we just realized maybe that door is the door of perception.
Exactly. So now I have become Ray and John.
And like we discussed earlier, I've been Jim. You know what I mean? That's not news to any of y'all, but it is what it is, right? So, okay, let me actually tell the story real quick, because I don't think I've ever told this story in full of how the Doors are the first band that I was ever a fan of. Okay. And the only reason that I'm really into music at all can completely be traced directly back to the Doors. If anything, you could say that the Doors opened my doors in my mind to music in general. Awesome. Because when I was a kid, I never paid attention to music. Like, I'm saying up until I was like 10 or 11. It was always just like background noise to me. Like, I never really consciously thought about it. Obviously, music was around, but if somebody asked me what kind of music I would like, I would just be like, rock and roll? Like, I didn't even know what the fuck it meant, really. Right. One day, I was with my family. We were somewhere in Florida that wasn't where we lived. Sanibel. We were in Sanibel Island, Florida, right? And
sounds beautiful.
It is a beautiful place. If you ever have a chance, go to Sanibel/Captiva Island in Florida.
What? I want a tequila sunrise right now.
Well, it's funny. I think about it now, not just a little side note. Like, we never really went on like vacations. We're like, let's go to fucking this country. Let's go to this country. Because it would always just be like, let's just drive to a place in Florida where we don't actually live.
Where it looks like friggin' Asgard.
And we could save so much money.
Yeah.
Which is definitely what they were thinking. That's not what they said to us.
Yeah.
But it's like, we'll just drive 2 hours south and it's like we're in a whole new place. You know what I mean? Anyway, we were in Sanibel and we were watching TV, and a movie called Apocalypse Now came on cable. And if y'all don't know that movie, it's a Vietnam War movie, and it literally starts with like an image of the jungle and the trees. And all of a sudden you just hear like do 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 do. And I remember like looking at the trees and hearing that music and just being like entranced. I was just like, what is this? Like, I've never heard anything like this before. And I just couldn't look away. And then, you know, it keeps going, the song keeps building up, and then you hear the voice come in. This is the end. And then the trees explode. And I was instantly hooked. I was like, holy shit. I was like, what is this? This is crazy. And I said to my dad, who was watching the movie with me, I was like, Dad, what is this music? And he was like, they're called The Doors. And I'm like, that sounds kind of lame, but I like it. That sounds kind of lame, but, you know, the music is good enough that I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
So I went home and I went on LimeWire. And I downloaded every single Doors song that I could possibly find.
Nice.
Until I just wore them all the fuck out. And then I was like, well, what other kind of music can I listen to that's kind of like this? So then I spread out to like other kind of like psychedelic rock from there.
Yeah.
And then from there I spread out to classic rock, and then to punk rock, and then from punk rock into hip hop. And that's how I've gotten into music. That's like awesome. It all started with the Doors. Like 100%, if there were no Doors, like I probably wouldn't live in New York City. Like there wouldn't be Sight After Dark. Like 100%. Like the line of me being here, being a musician, I can trace directly back to the Doors.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. I can trace my actual musicianship, like playing an instrument, back to the Doors because I Love Her Madly had come on again at some point in my life. And then when I heard it, it's like I knew I heard it before. And it's like it was the second time in my life that I had heard it. And I feel like most likely the first time I heard it, I was very, very small and I really liked it, but it triggered something in my mind. And I just knew I wanted to play that song.
Right.
Like, so that made me go get a guitar. That made me bring it in the house. That made me know the difference between a left-handed and a right-handed guitar. Like, I didn't even know there was a difference. Like, I didn't even know that. And like, once I had the guitar in my hand, I was like, okay, well, I can learn to play this by ear or I can get the book. And I did both. I learned to play it by ear and then I actually learned the tab. And like, that's what made me an actual musician. And I thank the Doors for that. Like, that's pretty dope. Like, you know.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Shout out to the Doors for opening the doors of our minds.
Yeah.
So once they get together, they start playing some little shitty clubs in LA.
Yeah.
Until eventually they get booked as the house band at the Whiskey A Go Go.
Right.
Which is a legendary club in LA.
Yeah.
And one of their friends, who was in another band called Love, they were signed to Elektra Records.
Right.
And he told the president of Elektra, you guys got to go check out this band, The Doors.
Yeah.
Because what they were doing was absolutely fucking insane.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just crazy what they were doing at the time. Like, it was so... how do I even describe it? It was literally like they were just... The music just became a flowing stream that Jim was flowing in. Like, the music became a river that Jim was swimming down. Yeah. Right? And they were just like... It was very improv. Like, they didn't know where the songs were going to go. There would be long instrumental parts. There would be long parts where Jim could just, like, say poetry. And nobody really knew what the fuck was going to happen on any given night. Yeah, yeah. And they were definitely shaking things up. Like we said, they were kind of the anti-flower power movement. You know, not that they were, you know, just spewing words of hate. They were still along kind of the same lines of, like, unification. But they were more of, like...
upsetting the system type of band or upsetting your eardrums type of band. Like, they don't want you to just come in and just stay yourself. You know what I'm saying? You have to pass through a doorway and become something else.
They were more of a let's burn it all down kind of band.
To the fucking ground. You cannot petition the Lord with prayer.
Oh, yeah. So they were just doing wild shit. And the most wild thing got them fired from the club.
Yeah.
They played this song called The End.
Yeah.
And like we said, there was, they made it so there was long parts where Jim could kind of like improvise poetry. Mm-hmm. And he got all fucking Greek on their ass.
Yes, he did.
And just starts talking about fucking the mother and killing the father and all this shit. And it's just, nobody ever would expect to see that or hear that in the 60s.
No. I'm sure.
Even now,
yeah.
If we just went to an open mic and somebody was fuck your mother, kill your father, it'd be like, what is up with this guy?
Yeah, it wouldn't go over well. I'm sure a woman would scream.
Oh, yeah.
You can bet on that.
Well, it was so funny. We were actually just listening to an interview with John and Robby with Rick Rubin, which you guys should check out if you're into any of these people that we just mentioned. And it was funny. I don't remember if it was John or Robby, but he was saying that they would play Light My Fire and everybody would be dancing, feeling all good. And then they would close with The End, and everybody would just kind of slink out like real quietly.
Gotta go.
And so that's interesting. So that was kind of legendary. They became like kind of the talk of a town from that performance because it was like, what is this? Like, this is absolutely insane.
Yeah.
So now they're signed and they're working on their first album, and we should actually say Light My Fire eventually became a #1 song. It is the first song that Robby Krieger ever wrote.
Ever.
Like, the way that it came about is that Jim basically challenged the rest of them to write some lyrics, right?
Yeah. I feel like, these four are so, like, you can draw, like, parallel lines or lines to each other in terms of, like, what impact they have. Jim never sang before, you know what I mean? And it made Ray want to start a band. Robby never wrote a song before, and it goes #1. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Jim's super analytical, Ray's super analytical, but they're like two sides of the same coin in a way.
Right.
And I bet if you ask them, even like now in the afterlife or wherever people go and stuff, I bet if you ask them, I bet Ray would say at times he wanted to be a little bit like Jim, and I bet Jim would say, I wish I could be a little bit more like Ray, because they're kind of like the same person in a way.
Yeah, they are kind of flip sides of each other.
Yeah. It's crazy.
They're very similar, and it's like, you kind of have to be for something like this, because I was thinking about this earlier. Like, imagine you being the band during that performance of The End, and you have no idea where Jim's going.
Yeah.
And he's never done anything like that before.
Right.
It takes a certain kind of person, as the whole band, to go through that performance and be like, this is the thing. A lot of people could deal with something like that and be like, what the fuck are you doing, man?
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to be involved with this. This is what you're doing? I don't want anything. This is fucking crazy, dude. But all of them were just kind of like, so we're doing it again tomorrow? Or you know what I mean? Like, they weren't really dissuaded by that. They were into it. They might not have all been as impulsive and as crazy as Jim, but they clearly were on the same page as like, we're doing something here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Because
imagine being John just on the drums, and all of a sudden he's like, he gets into that fuck your mother shit.
Yeah.
Like, what? Like, come on, bro. We're playing the whiskey here. You trying to get us fired?
Exactly. And he did.
So they record their first album.
Yeah.
With the very creative title, The Doors. The first single, Break On Through, didn't really break on through to the charts.
No, it did not. You're on a roll here, Dan.
I had a lot of coffee today.
Or shall I say Jim?
That's right. So the second single, like you're saying, Light My Fire, the first song that Robby Krieger ever wrote in his life, goes to #1 in America.
Yeah.
Insane.
Yeah.
Insane. And they go to perform it on the Ed Sullivan Show.
Yay.
And the producers are like, hey guys, we really like the song, but there's this one lyric where you say, like, girl, we couldn't get much higher. Like, I don't know. Can you say, like, girl, we couldn't get much better. Like, this is like a national program, and we don't want people to think that we're, endorsing drug use, if that's okay with you. And Jim's like, well, if that's what it needs to be. So they go to play the song, and Jim says the original lyric. It caused quite a stir. And people are like, I can't believe he did that. And it's funny because when they made the Doors movie, they made it seem like he did it purposely to be like, fuck you, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But when you watch it, it's like, I feel like he was just into the song. Like,
yeah. He may well have just forgotten or just been you practice it so many times.
Yeah.
One way, right?
That's what I was going to say. Sudden, like, if you practice a song 1,000 times this kind of way, and then right before your performance says, oh, could you just do it a little differently? If you're really, like, into the song, you could easily forget. Yeah. And you're talking about one word. Mm-hmm. It's not like you're saying, oh, you got to cut out this whole verse.
Oh, exactly.
It's just like that one word, maybe not.
But, know. But, that's how it is. And I just also like to say at Sullivan and all the gang there, you got an 8-second delay. You could have bleeped it. All right?
But that's how the history goes. And that's how you become a rock and roll legend. You talk about drugs on live TV.
That's what you do.
Right?
And the kids immediately all went out and got drugs.
And they all bought the Doors album.
Mm-hmm.
So that happened, and this just makes them bigger. I mean, the song's already #1, but now it's like they're like kind of like the bad boys of rock.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
And especially when you talk about Jim, it's like not only does he have this crazy stage presence where he's channeling this crazy mystical energy of the music, but like let's be real, the guy is fucking gorgeous.
Very hot.
The guy was a fucking good-looking guy.
Meow.
It's funny. A lot of people say, like, people only bring up looks when you talk about, like, women. Let me tell you something here. Not on this podcast.
We're equal opportunity.
We're equal opportunity objectifiers on this podcast. So Jim's hot as fuck, all right? So we're going to say that. And I think, they would have been successful regardless. Yeah. But him looking the way that he did not hurt.
Yes, exactly. Take that, Paul and John.
Yeah, you ugly motherfuckers. Go get your teeth fixed.
Oh my God.
No, I'm just kidding. Because, people say British people have bad teeth. I don't think that's even really true.
I just think it's a lot of lack of sun that just makes their teeth a lot different than ours. Yeah.
Go get more sun.
Yeah.
What were you saying?
So Jim is good looking and the band is starting to skyrocket, but with popularity and more money and more accolades brings, we like to say, a lot of sobriety. Yes.
With the famous rock stars, the bigger they get, the more money they get, the more sober they typically are. That's usually how it goes.
Yeah.
So Jim is he's diving into a lot of drugs. First of all, they had been doing acid this whole fucking time. That's not new.
Right.
But now he becomes a bit of an alcoholic as well.
Because you need the liquid courage. Jim was a little shy. He didn't even really like to talk to people, much less be an exhibitionist on stage, which he pretty much turned into.
Yeah.
And sometimes he needed a little of the liquid courage.
Yeah, and because of the liquid courage, his alter ego Jimbo appeared.
Mr. Mojo.
Mr. Mojo rising. Yeah, so they get into it more. Their next album, Strange Days, also great album, does super well.
Yeah.
They keep going with, I think Waiting for the Sun is next. Mm-hmm. And they were actually going to do a whole side of that album for one of Jim's like epic poems, Celebration of the Lizard.
Yeah.
Because he is the Lizard King, and he can do anything. But apparently they just couldn't pull it off the way they wanted to. Jim was kind of all over the place.
Yeah.
And John was getting really upset with him because it was really hurting the productivity of the band.
Damn it, Jim, can't you get sane? That's how you got to do it. That's back in the day for you.
Slap him in the face one time.
Wake up.
Yeah. But no, Jim was always... There was always just quite an edge to him. Mm-hmm. And I think that's part of why he's so magnetic as like a person. Yeah. And we should probably mention, there's been debate about what actually happened with like the thing when he was a kid.
Yeah.
With like the
Native
car
Americans
accident.
in the car. Yeah.
He said that when he was a kid, their family like drove by like a bunch of, I guess, Native Americans that had gotten in a car accident, and like a bunch of them had died right there on the street. Mm-hmm. And it like profoundly affected him. Mm-hmm. And he said he thought that one of their spirits entered his body on that fucking day.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, I can't prove, but who fucking knows?
Yeah. I have no idea. I don't know. You know, it could have been child empathy and just deep hypersensitivity as well, you know, but I can't tell you whether that spirit jumped into you or not.
I can't say. But I can say that it definitely affected him as a person.
Yeah.
And a lot of like the darkness and the edginess of what he did, he kind of attributed to that one specific incident in his life.
Well, that's pretty interesting.
Yeah. But yeah, so they put out Waiting for the Sun, which is their only #1 record, I believe.
Yeah.
And it's fucking great, but you know, the things are just getting wild.
Wilder and wilder and wilder, which is kind of crazy, but let's do it. Let's get wild.
I mean, so I'm trying to think of exactly the order because at this point, Jim is drunk in the studio for sure. Mm-hmm. Like there's certain songs on like this album and like all the albums after where you can just hear that he's wasted on these fucking songs.
Change. I mean, come on.
Final one, baby. Like he's clearly drunk. But it still sounds great.
Absolutely.
If anything, it adds a lot of personality on some of those.
It really does.
Which I'm not condoning. I'm not telling you to get drunk and record music. But
don't do it, y'all. You ain't Jim.
Y'all aren't Jim. I'm Jim.
Exactly. There's only one Jim here.
Yo, it is funny, though. When I was a kid, when I first listened to them, I wanted to be Jim Morrison.
A lot of and you know what? You know it's weird. It's like you might be like the third person who has actually said that. I've had 2 people actually feel like they were Jim Morrison. You know, he's got that thing about him.
Interesting.
You know, and I'd be like, you ain't him. No, I'm just
well, it's funny. Like even back in the day, like I grew my hair out to try to look more like all of that shit. And then at one point I realized I can't be Jim Morrison.
Yeah.
I just, for some reason, I feel like I can't be this other person that died 40 years ago.
You just can't.
For some reason.
Something about it, you know. But he's just that infectious. That's how I'm going to call him. He will infect you with his persona, that Jim Morrison. And that's what makes him great. But so who knows maybe everybody's just hopping spirits and swapping spirits, you know. Maybe he's doling out his spirit from time to time. He's like, what is it, like 1994? I feel like doling my spirit out in Florida.
Well, some could say in a strange way that during some strange days that by putting your soul into music the way that you do, and by having that music reach so many people, that kind of is spreading your soul. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And it is really crazy when you think about it. I mean, I first discovered the Doors in 2006. Mm-hmm. This is so long after this man had died. Yeah. And I've spent so much time listening to his voice.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So I think that is, in a way, spreading your soul to other people.
Yeah,
you know?
It is. There are moments where I know last year, definitely, I think it was like around July and stuff like that, I just started like playing a lot of Doors music, and then I went on Instagram and they were just like, I saw a page just like remembering Jim Morrison on the day he passed away. So he is kind of infectious. He'll stay with you. Yeah. Don't turn him on unless you want him to stay with you.
Yeah, so he's enjoying the whole rock star life.
Yes, Gail's pregnant, Judy's pregnant, Brenda's pregnant. They're all pregnant.
Unconfirmed. But yeah, so they're doing bigger and bigger things. They're touring around the world. They're putting out more albums.
Yeah.
And Jim is... Yeah, like you were saying, he's becoming a bit more of an exhibitionist on stage. Mm-hmm. And it's funny because this is a story, I didn't hear about this story until recently when we were doing research on this. And when I started doing research, I was almost cocky about it. I was like, do I really need to do research on the Doors? I know about the Doors, okay? This shit ain't new to me. But I did learn some new things. Apparently, around this time, they had a big headlining show in New York where they were opening for Simon and Garfunkel, which is kind of a weird lineup.
It is.
The Doors opening for Simon and Garfunkel. But whatever, that's a whole different story. And apparently the New York crowds were not feeling Jim's whole shaman mystical thing. Yeah. They're like, look at this fucking guy.
Yeah, you need to come down to earth or be a fake folker. No, I'm just kidding. You're not fake Simon and Garfunkel.
But this shows how real Jim was, Because even though the crowd was not fucking with him, he was like, I don't care.
Right.
He's like, this is what I do.
Exactly.
If anything, he doubled down after that.
Yeah, he had to double down because New York had already pretty much spit him out. So he's probably like, fuck that. I'm tough now. I know what this is.
But it's not only that, but it's like in general, it's like after that, he kind of was just like, if I'm going to capture the crowd somehow.
Yeah.
If it's not by me just channeling the music, it's going to be by me being absolutely fucking outrageous.
Outrageous. And there are actually some great pics of Jim in Central Park and Jim around the Hunter College where he performed at my old school too, that you can find on the internets and interwebs, all of them. According to George Bush Jr., who's all of them. All of the internets.
All the internets.
You can find them on.
Except for that one. You know about that one.
That one.
We don't want to talk about that one.
You don't want to go on that one.
No. Stay away from that. So, I guess should we talk about the Miami thing? Should we go straight to this?
Let's talk about it. Yeah. Go, okay. Jim.
So his whole craziness kind of, I guess, peaks at a concert in Miami, which it's only right that the craziest shit would happen in Florida, right?
Of course.
Because Jim is a Florida man at heart.
Yeah, let's just say it.
Let's all admit it, okay? So he's at a concert in Miami, fucking wasted.
Yeah.
And he just tears the crowd apart. He says one of our favorite lines that he yells. First of all, he's like, "You're all a bunch of fucking idiots." And then this is a quote that we say to each other all the time because it's so funny. "You're all a bunch of slaves." And the thing is that it's true.
He's right. They've got us. We are all.
That's what this guy is so fucking deep that even in his drunk, outrageous moments, all he's doing is really speaking the truth.
Yes.
Because he's not wrong. We're all slaves of something.
Yes. Okay.
I'm
a slave to the rhythm, but
it's something. You know what I mean? But no, so Jim just does that, and then he just gets he's like, "Y'all want to see my dick?" or something like that. And then it's like, it's debated if he actually whipped it out.
Yes, right. That's the thing. I know he says he did not.
He says he didn't. Some people that were there says he did, but also, well, we'll get into that. I want to say he ended up on trial for that, and he said in court that I was too drunk to remember.
Yeah.
Which is not a good defense.
No, Jim.
So who knows? Some people said that he whipped it out. Some people said that he didn't.
Right.
Either way, the show ends, and he left. Mm-hmm. Nobody arrested him.
No.
There were cops there. Nobody did shit.
You think he would have done time for it? That's what they were saying, right? He had to come back and do time for that, right?
Yeah. Well,
this is crazy. I always say in my head, that would kill him. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we'll get into the whole thing. But this obviously changed a lot of things in his life because literally he left the show and everything was fine. And then like the next day, the Miami sheriff, it was like, we're issuing 2 warrants for Jim Morrison's arrest.
Right.
One for
public
intoxication and one for profanity or some shit like that.
Maybe some indecency or something.
Yeah, indecent exposure maybe.
Yeah.
So Jim turns himself in. He's like, I'm not going to be a fugitive. Everybody knows that I was there.
And I own America.
I was on the stage in front of thousands of people. It's not like I can say, no, I didn't do that.
You better shave your head bald and bleach your skin.
Yeah, so he goes to court, and like we were saying, in court, he literally said, I'm too drunk to remember if I did whip it out. And that's not a good thing to say.
No.
Why? At what fucking lawyer do you have that let you say that? Just plead the fifth, dude.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Yeah.
But anyway,
lawyers obviously down with the courts.
Yeah,
that happens.
for real. It's a fucking double agent.
Yeah.
That lawyer. But he got sentenced to 6 months.
Yeah.
He did. I believe he got sentenced. It was like a delayed sentence, so he wasn't like, you going to jail right now.
Right.
But he was going to do 6 months.
Yeah.
But obviously that never happened.
No.
We'll get to why. Mm-hmm. They're still making music during this point.
Yeah.
They put out, after they made another album called The Soft Parade,
mm-hmm.
where it was a lot more horns and it was a lot more pop and kind of big band.
Yeah. Didn't quite get the best reception that people wanted.
No, not so much.
But I love a lot of songs on that album, particularly the Soft Parade, the song itself.
I think it's a good album. Mm-hmm. I don't think it's exactly what people were looking for them to do.
Yeah.
But, that's always, as an artist, you don't want to do the same thing all the time.
Correct.
But then because of that, their next album, Morrison Hotel, they were like, let's go just fucking gritty. Let's give some down and dirty blues type shit.
Yeah. And that was a good one. That's
I woke up this morning and got myself a beer. Yeah.
As a matter of fact, let's talk about the musicianship a little bit. Let's talk about let's talk about these keys. Let's talk about let's talk about these guitars and drums.
Yeah.
Because these guys are a unit, okay? And they are so synced up to each other. This might, with the exception of Ray, right? This may not be like the craziest technical type of very, very crazy type of super, super highly intellectual playing,
right?
Per se, but it's definitely something that's going to open your musical perception a lot. You know what I'm saying? One day somebody's going to play the keys for you, and the next day he's going to rip it on an organ. You know what I mean? And you don't even need a bass player because the guy at the keys.
That's the thing, right?
Yeah.
This guy Ray was just so talented. Like, he played all the bass lines with his left hand. It was doing crazy solos with his right hand. We talk about this a lot. Like, there's no best when it comes to music.
Yeah.
But he is clearly my favorite keyboardist in rock.
Yeah.
And, he invented the classic keyboard look.
That he did, which is
the sleeves rolled up and the tie loosened with the shirt unbuttoned a little bit. If you're a keyboardist and that's not your look, you're fucking up. Okay?
So true.
But his keyboard was one of the things when I first heard The Doors that really stood out to me the most, because just the way that he played, it didn't sound like anybody else. And just the notes that he would hit were so interesting.
Yeah.
And that combined with the notes that Robby was hitting,
it
just does not sound like anything I've ever heard before or since.
Yeah. They give me that same feeling. Sometimes, like, we were just at Alice in Chains and Nirvana podcast, and we were talking about Alice in Chains and their harmonies and stuff like that, and how I can feel them, like, you know what I mean, like inside or at the back of my head or stuff like that. Robby and Ray, the way they play, like, let's just think about like the way Ray does like the bass chord on like Indian Summer in the beginning. Do, 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 do. Like, you feel like you're about to walk through a door or through on a pathway like you do. And then it's like with Robby, it's like the way sometimes he pulls on his strings and his chords, that kind of like Baroque Spanish, like really down dry South kind of feeling. You feel like you just walked through a door in a way, like something just played behind you and you have to stop and be like, what was that? It's like, it's so strange what they do to the human perception. It's crazy.
Yeah. And that's why their name is so accurate for what they do. And then, so you have all that. You have John's really tasteful drumming.
Yes.
And then you have Jim channeling all of this. And that's what made him such a great frontman, is that the music really just flew through him.
Yeah.
Like, there was a quote from, I think it was Robby, right?
Okay.
He was saying, like, I could strike a chord and then I could see Jim do something to the chord. Like, I could literally see what I was playing through Jim.
So awesome.
You know what I mean? And then Jim's stage presence was unlike pretty much anyone else, because he wasn't really... Well, he was energetic. It was so up and down with him. He could be the most energetic, just jumping around, doing all this shit.
Yeah.
But then half the other time, he could just be like...
Yeah.
Just like in a trance. Like, he was really like in a trance by this music that he's just... projecting outwards, so then you become in a trance.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's part of like the mystical aspect of what they did, was how he was able to just channel all of that.
Yeah.
And that's why they kind of call him like a shaman. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like a modern day shaman.
Yeah. And a lot of people that are up on a stage wielding a microphone are, you know what I mean? They hypnotize us with their voice, their sound, the look in their eyes, stop it. No, just kidding.
That's the thing that's funny. Like, I think Jim's dad said in an interview that I don't think his talent was vocal necessarily. It was just, it was entertaining. It was in grabbing the attention.
Yeah.
Because even like, I'll watch interviews with him, I just can't look away from the fucking guy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Absolutely. He's very encapsulating. I don't know.
And it's funny, like the difference, he was so wild on stage, but then when he's just talking, he's just very chill, and it seemed he was very level. Yeah. And he wasn't going to be pushed around by whatever energies you were putting off.
Right.
Because his energy was a certain way, and that's just what it was.
You got to give him that, definitely. And what a visionary, right? Didn't he say something like, I foresee somebody just standing with a microphone and using just like machines as their musical, tool.
I mean, he literally predicted electronic music in like 1969 or 1970.
Yeah.
Before Stevie was doing it by himself.
Exactly. He's like, I predict 2 turntables and a
microphone.
1 hot MC on the set.
Yeah, but no, he really did. He definitely predicted like all of like electronic dance music and shit. Like he literally said all of that.
Yeah,
it is kind of crazy.
Yeah.
But that's a whole other story.
Yeah.
So
the musicianship of the Doors. Let's get into some stories. So what's happening? Everything's getting wilder. Everything's getting crazier. It's kind of coming to the end of the Doors.
This is the end.
Yeah. All pretty
the
sad.
End of the Doors.
Yeah. Jim goes to Paris to evade doing time pretty much.
Well, I want to say first before we get to that. So they recorded their last album with Jim, LA Woman.
Yes.
While the cloud of the trial was like all over him, basically.
Yeah. And he does his book as well.
And he did a book of poetry. Mm-hmm. He also did just like they had a recording session on his 27th birthday, which would be his last birthday.
Yeah.
Of just like him recording poetry that he had written they would later put music to.
Yeah.
Which is really cool.
Yeah. I like a lot of it.
Yeah, I really like that. But yeah, so LA Woman was the last album they put out with Jim. And it's so crazy. Riders on the Storm is on that album.
Yes.
And the very last thing he ever recorded was on that album. Mm-hmm. That song, sorry. And it was the whisper track. Mm-hmm. Riders on the Storm.
Yeah.
That's the last thing that he ever recorded.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's really insane. Yeah. I personally, I'm just throwing this in there, I don't think Riders of the Storm needs a rain track. But who the fuck am I? Yeah, I like. Of course, I love all that. I love the keys, but the actual rain in the background, it's like we get it. It's a storm. Who am I?
Into this house we're born.
Boom, 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 boom.
Into this world we're thrown. Yeah, but so after they finish up recording that album, he goes to Paris, and he never comes back.
Right.
Because he dies under mysterious circumstances.
Mm-hmm. Pam did it. No, I'm just kidding.
He went with his girlfriend, Pamela, and so apparently one day he was coming home from a club, and he was just like, I got a weird pain in my chest. Mm-hmm. And then he just never woke up after that.
Right.
And apparently the only people that ever saw his body was Pamela and the doctor that signed the death certificate. There was no autopsy, and nobody has ever said why. They don't even try to make something up. It's just, there was not an autopsy. It's like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Because Jim Morrison is alive and well, living in San Diego, of all places.
Well, it's funny because, some people say, because of the way that he was expanding people's minds, that maybe some people wanted to take him out. Mm-hmm. Some people say that maybe he wanted to fake his own death because he was about to go to fucking jail. Mm-hmm. And he was sick of being famous. Because, again, he's really a shy guy. Mm-hmm. That's not his natural state of being, is to be a hugely known, internationally famous person.
Correct.
So maybe he would try to fake his death. I don't know. Back in the day, you could get away with something like that. Yeah. You can't fake your death now. I'll tell you that.
Too much facial, too much CCTV.
Yeah, it would just never happen. But who knows? Nobody really knows what happened that day. Mm-hmm. I mean, all we really know is that Jim died.
Yes. The character, Jim, died.
From the
James
ashes.
Douglas Morrison is still here with...
Somewhere. He's living in a house with Elvis.
Yep.
And every now and then Tupac stops by.
That's right.
In Cuba, somewhere. Yeah, so... Unfortunately, Jim passed away, but, honestly, I mean, that's part of why he's so legendary.
Yeah.
That's always a sad thing, right? Because, when you die young, it just, people only remember you at your peak.
Yeah, yeah, and just how young you were. It's just crazy, so... And then, okay, so then, Ray And John, I think, or Ray and Robby, they try to look for another lead singer.
Did they even try, or were they like, we're just going to do it, the three of us?
No, they tried to look for another lead singer in Paris. They tried to look for another lead singer really briefly, and then that didn't pan out. And then the Doors were performing, you know, just as the band and stuff like that. And then they started suing each other for things.
Well, that's true. But so they actually did put out 2 albums as the Doors.
Yeah.
Without Jim, with the 3 of them. The first one was called Other Voices, which makes sense.
Yes.
It was mostly Ray singing, I believe.
Yeah. Because Ray can sing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ray has a good voice, and they wrote decent rock songs, but clearly it's not the same without Jim.
No, definitely not the same without Jim. Clearly not the same without Jim.
Yeah, clearly just wasn't the same without Jim, and it's just one of those things. I mean, there's a reason he's still legendary to this day. I mean, he was a once in a generation kind of person.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not only at talent as a rock musician, but just as a person. Like the way that he thought. Like he clearly was so fucking smart. You know? And just like we said before, like he was such a voracious reader that he just knew so much. You know? And it's not like somebody with that kind of charisma does not come around often. Right.
And it's unfortunate, but yeah. And you know, when somebody does come around like that, exactly what happens. You know what I'm saying? You suck the life out of that person.
Yeah.
That's what happens. The person's life gets sucked out of them because they're such a rare breed. They're not the sun, you know. Back up, people. Okay? Jeez.
Yeah, but it's just so crazy because, you know, I think about this all the time. Like, the Doors started in 1965. So this is decades ago. And there is nobody that sounds like them to this day. Like, I've never, you know, we listen to music sometimes, you're like, oh, this band, you know, this part, this sounds a little Zeppelin-y, this sounds like a little Black Sabbath-y, like, you can kind of hear the influences. I've never been listening to a newer band and be like, oh, this kind of sounds like the Doors.
Right.
It's never happened once. The closest thing we talked about Joy Division, just kind of like the overall vibe, maybe, of like the kind of the darkness of the songs. Yeah. But as far as what the music actually sounds like, it's nothing like that.
No. Way more technical and way more technical in the Doors. You know what I mean? Yeah. Where with Joy Division, you could tell they're coming from like a punk era where it's just like a couple of basic chords and a vibe, and that's it.
And that a lot of that has to do probably with Ray being classically trained.
Yeah.
And it's funny because they were saying, like, you know, Jim wasn't a songwriter. He didn't know any instruments, so he didn't know how to write music. Right. So a lot of the time he would just sing something out to Ray, and Ray would be like, okay, that's an F sharp. Okay, so maybe I'll do this chord. Like, Ray kind of made Jim's writings palatable as a song. You know what I mean? So that's really interesting. And it kind of goes with what you were saying before. Like, they are kind of just two sides of the same coin. Like, they fit together like that.
A lot of like those two. Very interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. They all have like their different parallels. I mean, you know, Robby and John knew each other and they were kids, but like you can match one. You could play Doors with, you know,
musical Doors.
Who wants to play musical Doors? Let's match one personality to the other and see if they click.
Yeah. But they're just so legendary. Like, I just love them.
Me too.
I just love all of them. I love when I hear John and Robby talk to this day. I love hearing older interviews from Ray. Ray passed away a few years ago, unfortunately, so he's no longer with us.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just John and Robby at this point. And we were literally, like we said before, go check them out talking to Rick Rubin. That's something like a few weeks ago. It's pretty recent. And it's cool to hear them talk and just like, you know, hear their perspectives on things.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to shout out to all the people who were young adults or even, you know, already, you know, middle-aged adults in the 60s who saw that movement begin and who made it to the turn of the century and past the turn of the century. Like, shout out to those guys. Like, they influence a lot of our music, a lot of our cultures. There's times you look back at them and it's like, man, like, if we can't even be anything like them right now, so shout out to all those people. And I know that they kind of feel like that too. It's like, whoa, I saw the year 2000. It's like, shit, I saw Martin Luther King die. Like, you know what I'm saying? I saw JFK get shot. Like, it's crazy.
And here we are in 2022 talking to Rick Rubin on a podcast.
You know what I mean? It's just insane. It's just insane. And the legions of people that came after them that wish they could do anything like them.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Shout out to y'all. You did not fail.
Yeah. And with them specifically, it's just like they really did just capture some kind of magic. Mm-hmm. Like whatever it was, like whatever you want to call it, the spirits, the muses, like they clearly were flowing through all of them together as a group.
Yeah.
And it's like, it wouldn't have been this, if you had changed even one member out, it would not have been the same.
No way.
And that's why, when they tried to continue on with Jim, it was kind of like, it's just not the same. Like, It's not saying that they're bad.
Yeah.
It's just when you take away that element of the recipe, it's just not going to turn out the same.
Yeah. Especially if you've always been the Doors, right? It's never been Jim Morrison and the Doors. Like,
right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Oh, that reminds me. Something else that was always really cool is that I like about them that we've talked about in general. That's always a cool thing for bands to do is that they always credited the songs to the Doors.
Yeah.
They didn't have, this was written by Jim Morrison. Because I feel like that causes a lot of problems in bands.
Yeah.
So they were kind of ahead of the curve, I think, by doing that. Because they're like, look, we're all doing this together. Like, we're a band. Like, there's a reason we're a band and we're not solo artists. Like, we're doing this together. So if we're writing a song, the song is written by the Doors.
Right.
Period.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I always thought that was great.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. What solo work do you think Jim would have done, if any? I think it would have been just the poetry and maybe some filming,
it would have been poetry.
Right? Yeah, some movies and stuff.
Clearly,
actually
that's
him behind the camera, not in front of it.
Clearly, his heart was really in the poetry. Like, that's really, like, his natural state.
Yeah.
And then it just so happened that, he met Ray, who was able to make this great music to his words, and then they got John and Robby into it.
Yeah.
But... yeah, like we said, I mean, he didn't even think of himself as a musician at all. He just, one day, he just, like, heard, like, music in his head. Like, I wonder what sparked that. Like, maybe he just did acid one day, and the next day he woke up and he was just hearing shit in his head that he hadn't heard before.
Probably.
You know what I mean?
That makes sense.
So that's the story of the Doors. I mean, they're still a completely legendary band, completely unique. Nobody sounds like them. Nobody ever will sound like them.
Exactly.
They hold such a special place in music history.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Like, I want to hear a band that sounds like the Doors. You just have to go listen to the Doors.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what I mean?
It's true. Yeah. They've all done work after. I heard that John Densmore is a good dancer as well. I read that. I would like to see these videos. But if a drummer drums, you're always moving your feet to the beat. I could see you, catching a two-step and stuff like that.
Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that's about it that I've heard, really. Somebody wrote, I don't know if it was Ray or Robby, so I can't really say it, but somebody wrote for like a punk band and wrote on 4 albums for a punk band. It might be Ray. And one of those albums actually went number 1.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
I didn't know about that. Tell us in the comments if you know about that.
Yeah.
And yeah, shout out to the Doors. Shout out to all of them. Shout out to Jim. Mm-hmm. Shout out to Ray.
Yep.
Shout out
to Robby. Shout out to John. I'm like staring forward. I'm like, there's a pause.
And shout out to all of you for watching.
Woo-hoo.
This has been the Music Maniacs podcast with Side After Dark. If you're here at this point in the episode, we love you. We appreciate you. If you want to support the podcast, go to patreon.com/musicmaniacs. Donate whatever you want. You'll be listed as a producer in the credits of the podcast, and you'll help us to continue doing this and hopefully to make more episodes as, things keep going. So, and that's pretty much it.
Yep.
We're Side After Dark.
We are.
And we'll see you next time.
See ya.